In this video, I'll be replicating a 1980s BBC visual effects filming miniature that has been on my to-do list now for far too long. Thanks to the amazing folk who've supported this channel over the years, I've been gifted the opportunity to finally cross this off my list, and so I'm absolutely indebted to them. Now, if you don't click away and you just stay put, not only will you be able to watch me craft this curious little piece, but you'll also be able to see me do it whilst completely befuddled out of my mind. Quite the challenge, as I'm sure you will agree. Let's see how I got on. Hello and welcome to the first build of 2023. I hope you're all good and thanks very much for joining me. Now you can consider today's video a bit of a bonus because, to be honest, I wasn't supposed to be building this thing at all. It was one of those things on my to-do list. However, the reason that I'm doing this now is twofold actually. First of all, I'm supposed to be building something called Sentinel-6, which is sort of a robotic satellite, but it's not exactly complicated, but it needs me to think. And right now, my brain is a bit fuzzy, shall we say, because I've got the flu. It's not really the flu, it's something else. I'm not going to mention what it is, you can all pretty much guess, but you might even be able to tell. I'm not particularly on top form, so I want something easy to make. Now, the project that we're about to be working on today, and I've already started, as you can see, is quite straightforward. This is actually the hard part. This is the base. So what exactly is it that I'm building? Can you guess? Of course you can't. It might be Starbug's foot. It could be an Eagle transporter foot. But no, it's not. It's a robot. And it's actually a robot from a deleted scene. So I'm building a filming miniature. It's the junk mail robot from Greatest Show in the Galaxy. Now, as far as I'm aware, they did actually, I know they built it and I know they filmed it. And from all accounts, what they produced wasn't particularly good. It just looked a bit naff, and I guess that's why it was deleted. I rather like crap robots, and there's nothing more crap than that junk mail robot. So I'm going to be doing that because it's fairly straightforward. It's just some bits and pieces stuck together. It's basically a load of balls on a base with some arms and some lights, so that'll be all quite nice. I don't actually have all the parts yet. I have some plastic, and hopefully by Monday, it's Saturday now, the parts will arrive. But the other reason why I'm building this, not just because I'm completely foggy-brained, but it's because in the last video, I happened to mention the super thanks. And as a result of that, a number of you actually donated, and to be honest, I'm blown away. I'm absolutely over the moon on that. So I got paid the other day from that. And that money can pay for this. In fact, it has paid for this because I've already bought the parts. So in future, if you want to sort of donate, it really does genuinely help to produce pieces. Well, I say produce, I do the producing. It helps pay for the materials. So in that light, I would just like to thank a few people. There's two at the end who want to remain anonymous. But first of all, Danny Oz, Stuart Campbell, David Thompson, Brian Artillery, Xander Moon, Adam Taylor, John Walsh, and someone calling themselves SQR Nuclear. I hope that's how you pronounce it. And then we've got the two other guys. They want to remain anonymous, but I'm sure they won't mind me saying one's called David and the other one's called Dan. Dan's contribution is going to something else, but we'll probably come to that a bit later. So anyway, if you think super thanks doesn't really help, well, actually it does. Things like this are possible because of it. So anyway, where are we? I've already done the difficult bit, which is just cutting out some shapes. I'll show you a quick drawing. Here's a drawing, I don't know if you can see, so I've built this bit here. I say built, I've cut the parts out, and that's where we are. And I don't particularly want to show that because it's just boring and dreary, but you'll see me put it together. So that's where I am at the moment. So when we come back, I'll start gluing this together, but I just need to wait for some parts first. Another day, another shirt. I've taken my nasal spray and we should be good to go. Also, this is the debut of my new mug. The old Superman mug that I used to have. The handle started to break, so I really didn't want to break it even further. So for Christmas, my kids got me a Mr. Perfect, and of course it's Mr. Perfect. Why would it not be? Number one dad, of course, so there we are. Anyway, today it's Sunday, and I'm going to put all of this together. Well, I say all of this together, I'm just going to stick these bits together, and then I may, depending on how I feel, add in the ribs that sort of brace it all. Essentially all this stuff is coming on Monday, so there's not really much for me to do, so I'm literally going to tape it together. It's as simple as that, really. That's all I'm doing. So when all this is glued up and I get the parts, this is not a breast, it's a Dalek bump. Or no, it's not, it's actually the body. Well, actually this is from Sentinel-6, but I need another one exactly like this. So it'll sit something like that. And if we have a better view, something like that. But anyway, that's where we are. So what I really need to do now is glue all in here and possibly put some pieces like that in just for support, so I might as well cut those down. Yeah. Right, I've just cut some of these pieces. These are going to be supports for the corner edges. I still haven't taken the tape off because I really want it to thoroughly cure. I mean, usually it takes about 24 hours, but I'm not going to leave that long. I really do want to try and get on with as much of this possible as I can today, but then again, I've got other things to be doing with at the moment as well, especially with family mooching around. You can probably hear them walking around upstairs and next door doing the cooking and what have you. So yeah, the original one didn't actually have supports like this. It actually just had two supports on either side here, which acted as the sidewalls to these little pockets, and then one here. Frankly, I don't think I need to do that, so I am going to deviate very slightly from the original plan. Did want this to be 100% accurate, but why make more work for yourself? So, yeah, this goes in here. So, one side, now to make sure I do the right side. Done that one. And, oh, this is fantastic. So these are just going to support those corner edges. Right, okay, you're joining me at a point at which I've got to do quite a precarious little operation. Now, as you can see, I've got everything trigged up here and it's ready to fall over at any given notice. So, I'm going to do this once and then do the rest off camera because I really can't be bothered doing this over and over again for you. But you're going to get the general idea. You know, I said earlier that I'm not going to put these ribs on. Well, I do have to put some ribs on because they form the sides of the pocket. Whether I'll make another set and do it on the sides where there are no pockets, we'll see how I feel after this operation. So as you can see, I have two 1, 2, 3 blocks, one here and one sitting in here. Now this edge is hoping, or I am hoping, that this will create a nice neat join between this and the very edge of this hole. So with this wedged in there, this shouldn't go anywhere else other than where I want it to. So that's the order of the operation that I'm going to be doing. I'm fully expecting this to go wrong, so yeah, let's just get this done. So a little bit of cement, some on here, it's going to weep through, I know it. it'll probably end up sticking to the 1, 2, 3 block as well, which I don't really want it to do, but I haven't got much of a choice. So in we go, snug up against the side of the 1, 2, 3 block. It's looking good. Oh, actually, that's not as precarious as I had initially feared. It's looking good. So, to reiterate, because I was trying to concentrate there, essentially the side of the 1, 2, 3 block is making sure that this piece here can only go into one position, and that's snug up against the side, but obviously on that side. So that's what I'm going to do. I've just got to make some more, but once this is set and dried enough for me to inspect, I'll know whether I can continue. But that is what I'm going to do 3 more times, potentially 6 more times, no, 5 more times, because I've already got one. You know, 1 here and here. But there we are. That's what I've got. I'm really sorry, but you're going to have to forgive my unwarranted and totally unmitigated temerity of skipping a bit ahead here, but this has been a bit of a pain in the arse. I won't go into too many details, but there's a slight miscalculation on my part, and things didn't quite match on these points, but I am slowly rectifying. It's nothing major. It's just the slight gap, but that doesn't really matter because I was going to brace the, where the parts meet with something like this anyway, so that's what I'm doing now. And then essentially this bit's finished, so I'm just going to pop a little bit of glue on here and put it either side of the join. The original one didn't have this, but I'm a bit of a stickler for bracing, and I want this to be absolutely strong as can be. I can feel myself getting a little bit tired. I don't know whether it's this flu that I've got, but I seem to be tiring quite a lot. But anyway, this is done, and I'll show it to you in a second. Let me just do that. Zoop. All technical terms here. Right, so that little bit in there braces the drop down and the main skirt. So in theory, it should be nice and strong. Okay, let's play catch up. It's now Tuesday. Yesterday, most of my parts arrived, and as you can see, here they are. I've just sort of stacked it all up to give you a general idea as to what this robot is going to look like. So those balls and the dish and this little lot of tubes and square tubes, that cost me about £75. I've also got some extra small pieces here. These are for details, so I've got some beads for the for the joints on the legs. This will be a leg. There's 6 of them. There's 3 here and 3 on the other side. Various other little details in here as well. That's an extra £10, I think. So, yeah, when replicating things like this, especially when you're using plastruct pieces, which are these bits, it can get a little bit pricey. I cannot, if I was to absolutely work on it, I could probably complete this more or less today, but I can't because I'm actually missing a piece of tubing for the neck. Now, a very good friend of mine, a guy called Ian Crichton, fellow model maker, fantastic model maker actually, he's very kindly donated a piece of tubing of the right size. Hopefully it will arrive today. But even if it did, it's going to be kind of pointless anyway because I'm feeling like death warmed up. I can barely see straight and it hurts to look at things. So concentrating today is going to be a bit off. So I'm not going to be doing anything, so we'll come back maybe tomorrow, see how I feel then. But that's where we are. That's hopefully what the thing is going to look like, more or less. It needs some arms and some solar dishes here, or solar panels. Obviously I need to paint it and put some lights in. But that's all for the future. But never mind, it's looking good. It's as near to accurate as I can possibly make it. I'm never going to be 100% accurate because I've not had the original piece in my possession. However, I think I'm about somewhere between 95 and 97% accurate. And so long as it looks like the thing is meant to look like, that's all I really care about. It's the right size, right shape, and the details are all there. So, anyway, on with the build, I suppose. Right, confession time. It's day 3, I've had a couple of days off, and I really should not be doing any of this. I've been advised by absolutely everyone, don't do anything. Reason being, I've got extreme brain rot. The fog is unimaginable and it's quite disconcerting, but I'm going to try and continue on and see how far I get. So at the moment, what I need to do, on the body, you've got a big circle there, a big head there. Up the middle of it is a spine that everything mounts to. Well, I say everything. The model would mount to if I was filming it. So the spine is this square tubing, and I can't remember how much I'm supposed to be cutting. I think, was it 4 inches? Yeah, 4 inches will do. So how do I, oh yeah, 4 inches. 4 inches because we're doing it in imperial, because I think the original one was built in imperial. That edge is not square, that's more square, so that will do. It doesn't really matter if it's terribly square or not, but I've got to just double check everything. 4 inches, so it just about pokes out the bottom end of this. So pencil, it's that thing there. Do forgive me, I'm going to just talk to myself whilst doing this. So 4 inches is about there. Put it on here, which would be the best way to do this, that way round. So beep, 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 beep. Right. So I want to go on this side of the line. No, I don't. I want to go on the other side of the line. So 4 inches. 4 inches, how square is that? That's pretty square, and I don't have, yes of course, why would I have anything to hand? Idiot. Right, hang on, let's go get some sandpaper. Right, well I've got some sandpaper. Actually, I'll use that. Wow, I'm glad I spent nearly a tenner on a sheet. On the length of that for all of 4 inches. Brilliant. 4 inches just about goes through the body. Right, excellent. So I need, if I remember rightly, 2 inches. 2 inches down, we need to put a hole in this. Why does my brain just feel so off? So there we go. I now need to drill a hole in this. How am I going to do that? Do I do it on the machine which is over there and buried? Tell you what. We'll do a pilot hole first. Right, pin vise in here, in the centre. This is going to be my pilot hole. Right, let's see how that looks. Actually, let's just shove that through and see if it looks straight. Is that straight? Oh, look at that. Perfectly straight. So the conditions here aren't cramped in the slightest. Thank God for movie making, and you can't tell that right there's the light, right there's the camera, and there's a load of junk right there. In fact, there you can see it. I'm literally edged into a corner here. So yeah, let's get on with putting a hole in. You have to take my word, this is what's happening. Yay. And hole. All that. About, I don't know, 10 minutes trying to set all this up for 10 seconds worth of work. And you wonder why it takes me so long to do anything. Deburr. Without a deburrer. Try not to stub myself. There we go. All that for that. So, need to chop this down to about, well, I don't know, what do I need to chop it down to? Okay, 5 3/4 inches. Okay, we'll do that next. 5 3/4 inches it is. Right, first order of operation, I've already marked off my piece here, which is at 5 7/8. Now I want to obviously cut through this aluminium. So what I'm going to do first is take my triangular shaped file, and I'm going to give myself a bit of a head start. Just to start the cut. Something I learned years ago is you just slightly score into it with the sharp edge of a triangular file, and that gives you something to start on, rather than all this business where you put it on there and then the blade starts wandering off. Now, I've just said this, now you watch this wander off all over the place. Ah, see, perfect. There we go. Deburr that. Do you know, for years and years, as long as I can remember, from when I was a kid, I used to steal my mum's nail files to do all my sanding with. And then when I met my girlfriend, who then became my wife, I used to steal hers for my model making. And then I started doing it to my daughter as well, so it's terrible, isn't it? But each and every one of the women in my family all suddenly realised that if they're going to buy nail files, they'll buy me a set as well. Because obviously I need to keep my nails manicured too. So anyway, there we are, that is done. I just want to... If I had my deburrer, I would use that, but a plumber came round several years ago and stole it. Just as he stole my massive flat-headed screwdriver that my late father gave me. I'm rather gutted about that, but what can you do? So, that goes in there, and that is basically the little armature. So what's going to happen here, I'll tell you what, let's move the camera so you can actually see what I'm talking about. This is going to sit inside the body, sort of like so. If I ever wanted to mount it for filming, I'll put a piece of 6mm up there, and rest it on there, and then the arms with the solar panels on the side will slide over this bit. So, sort of like that, which means I've got to make a square cutout here and here, and a circular one here and here, but I've got to get the position right, so I'll do that a bit later on. Right, well, despite my better judgment, I am about to cut out the little notch that this piece is going to sit in. It's going to be right in there. So what I've done, I know what the size of that piece is, and I've just scored the halfway point along there and made two little marks there, and I've got to somehow cut up to that line. Now I only have two of these because I can only afford two, and if I cock this up I'll be in a world of pain and misery, so I'm going to try and cut this out. But as I think about this, trying to do it for camera is making my life really difficult, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm going to stop every now and then just to see where I am on that line. If I wasn't filming this, I'd go a lot quicker. And I'd have less chance of cutting my own finger with this razor saw. I've got to keep stopping to see where I am. I'm about 2/3 the way. Nearly there. Just touching the line. So I'm going to continue doing this, and you can come back when I've pretty much got this sorted. So I've already done the square holes, I've got one here, and it fits absolutely perfectly. So now I'm trying to create the holes for these bits. Now you would think that I could just drill this, and no, you can't, because I can't stick the two halves together. So as soon as I try to drill with a 6mm drill bit, or in this case it's actually 6.5, which is pretty much close to 1/4 inch. As soon as I do this, the flutes and the trailing edge here literally just forces the two halves apart, so I'm having to do it the long and laborious way of filing it out. This has got to be the most tedious thing ever, so you can sit there and enjoy me doing this for a few moments. I don't know how long I'll do this on camera for, it's so tedious. And if it's tedious for me, it's going to be extraordinarily tedious for you. Yeah, well, I'll keep on doing this. I've got this one to do, and obviously the one on the other side to do. So you can come back when I've already done this. About 6 stab wounds later to my thumb, I've got this piece in, so now all I've got to do really is just sand off the join between the two halves, because there's a little bit of a lip there, so I'm just going to take the opportunity now to do that. I mean, I can do it a lot later on, but I might as well just do it now. And then, in a minute, I suppose I ought to glue this thing together. Okay, let's do a quick test fit. Where the hell is it? Oh, it's right in front of me. Right. Do you need to clean up the insides of this first? I'll probably need to adjust the angle inside here. But let's just have a look, see where we are. Just going to deep burr it in here. Right. Knights of the Coconut. If you're German, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, if you're not German, you still know what I'm talking about. What am I doing? Right, plonk that in there. This one on top. Ooh, look at that. Joins perfectly. So I've got a little bit of a protrusion at the top, tiny bit at the bottom. That is good. Actually, let's see how good my maths is. Just shy of 3 centimetres. Just shy of 3 centimetres, so that is perfect. Now I'll show you what's going to happen here. Okay, well, this fat one is the arm, and that will slide over like that, or it will do when I've got round to it. But yeah, that's where we are. I'm pleased. I'm going to have to glue this together now. So before I do that, you may actually wonder, why have I split it this way? Well, obviously it makes life easier to make these holes here and here for this bit. But also, if you look at the original one, it too was split this way, and there's a really good giveaway. You can see the damn seams, but also you can also see this little detail. This needs sanding down. It's like a little belly button on his little fat pot belly. So it just stands to reason, if the original maker did it that way, then so will I. But yeah, anyway, back to gluing, or even I say back to gluing, start to glue. So I'll do this, then glue this bit later. I'll do it from the outside. Right, clear that off. Put this down, put it on there. It's all nice and tight all the way round. Any seep out I can sand later, but for now I'm going to have to just hold this for the next 5 minutes. So I think you can join me in a minute. Right, while it may only be a few seconds for you since you last saw this, for me it's been a few days. I've been off, let's say I've been a little bit ill. But anyway, I have kind of prepped this as far as I can go for now until I start putting the detail. What I've done is I've sanded all the seams down. I have sanded down the little belly button, the front one and the rear, and I've chopped this top part down. However, since then, I've been thinking about detailing this section. Now, there are meant to be some panels on here, and let me just show you this picture. I'm not sure quite how well you can see it, but on the original prop, which this is, there are some panel details, and much to my own personal chagrin, I'm going to deviate slightly from how the original one was done. I really loathe these details. The reason being is I can see quite clearly, and I'm sure you can when you look at this, that they're sticky labels. Every time I look at it, I just think, that looks a bit cheap, a bit nasty. So usually I like to go for a 100% accuracy, but for this, I'm going to change it ever so slightly. Now, instead of sticky labels, what I've done is I've cut myself some little pieces of 1/2 mm plastic card, and those will stick on. And this is how it's going to look. Now, the other deviation, apart from the fact that these aren't sticky labels, the sticky labels that they used, they all have rounded corners. Now, I looked at that and I really dislike the look of it. I just don't like it at all. So I'm going to have straightforward 90-degree angles. So that's what I've got to do next, is stick these into place. Okay, I've got a couple of details stuck on already. It's only on with the tape, as you can clearly see. That's just basically to help me position it. So what I want to do is fold these back, and I'm going to put a little bit of this glue on it in the corners. Go all the way around, up, down, across, and then fold this back over. There we go. And that is how I make sure that it doesn't move. So that's what the tape is for. It just allows me to fold it round and position it. So I need to do the same on this side. Just fold that down very slightly. Add a bit of glue, or adhesive I should say, or in this case solvent. Don't need too much. And then just press it lightly into position. And I notice there's a little bit of squeeze out there, so I'm going to take that out. There we go. Now, actually there is also one on the top, just about here. So I'm not going to position that one, I know roughly where it goes. I do have this just off to one side, my very rubbish printout. So put a little bit of adhesive or solvent weld on this, in this case solvent cement. And then just laser eyeball it in position. There, that's that done. So yeah, I've cut out a load more of these, and I've got to go around the whole thing and do all the rest of the detail. So that's the panelling done now. It's pretty accurate. I would say it's about 98%. The reason I say 98% is A, I've gone for plastic card rather than stickers, but also on the back here, I know this is on there, but I've added a little bit of a detail here and a little piece of detail there because I just felt it needed it. The sides don't really have anything, but they will be quite busy with the 3 legs sitting in there, and it's the same for this side. So I am fairly pleased with that. I'm actually feeling much better about it now. Now that I look at it with this raised panelling, with bits of paper stuck on like the original, it doesn't register pretty well. And I think that's why there was some carding going on in terms of the shading on the finished original prop. If you don't know what carding is, you just basically get a piece of cardboard and then you spray your shadowing over it and then remove it and you've got little panels. I think that may have been why that was done on the original. Anyway, onwards and upwards, as they say. I might have to do something about the head next. I'm not sure. We'll see. Okay, my friends, we're into day 5 of the build. Now, day 5 doesn't actually mean it's taken me 5 days. So far, in the 4 days that I've already done, that represents about 12 hours worth of work, and I have to say I'm losing time. So in the interim, in between now and the last day, I've actually done a little bit of prep work because I've really got to push on and get things done. So just to get you up to speed, I haven't done much. I have created these. These are the side wings that sit here, the solar panels. Now the way that I did that, let me just show you, is I cut some plastic card, double layered it up to bring it up to the correct thickness, and then what I did was I took some of this 1mm stock and using a scribe I scored hundreds and hundreds of lines, and each pass of the scribe took 15 passes. So yeah, that created a grid work. Now the reason why I did that is because had I gone and actually bought the original stock for a piece of about 40 centimetres by 30, that was £45, and I cannot justify it just for that very small amount that I've got there. So I went the long way round and did it by hand. So that's where we are. What I need to do now, mainly, is drill lots of holes. So yes, I need to finish those off. I need to drill some holes into that, put a piece of detail. We need to stick these pieces onto the back of there, drill holes into that, so that takes some of this over here, which will then go on there. It's basically faffing about, so I'm going to just get on with it, probably not talk so much, and just do stuff. So what I'm about to do here is I'm going to create a pilot hole with this tiny 1mm bit in here. Now this will ultimately become the little ears or the eyes, a bit like a Dalek, you know, with the lights flashing. So I need to just do this and very carefully. One, and the other side. 6mm bit. I need to open this up to 8mm, but we're going to do it in steps. So I've done 1, 3, now we're up to 6, and then we go up to 8. Looking a bit like a Dalek. Just want to go up to 8mm. And I'll show you what will happen. Right, so the whole point of that little endeavour there was so that these could hold the LEDs, so that goes in like that, and then that pushes up inside there and I'll glue it into place, and then the little lens will go over the top of it. So that's what I'm going to do next, but not glue the LEDs in, just the holders. So that goes in there, and then just a bit of cement in here. Just let it wick its way round. And the same for the other side. Just deburr that. Not that you're going to see any of this, but I'll know it's there. Clicks into place. Not that any of this was designed for that, but you know, you get the idea. There we are. Looks rather fancy. Looks like I know what I'm doing. Day 6, situation report. I've had a bit of a nightmare. You've seen me gluing pieces up, and over the years I've noticed that when I do glue pieces up, especially if it's white styrene items, I get a lot of staining on it, and I know what it is. It's basically this. This tin is well over a decade old, and as you can clearly see, it's starting to rust. And I do believe that rust has been contaminating the solvent to the point where the actual cure and the bond isn't 100% perfect. So what I have found is that a couple of these parts have snapped off after filming. I've had to go back and repair it multiple times in one case. But in this case, I think it was 7 times it fell off. So what I've done is I've started to decant it into here, let the sediment settle to the bottom, and then dip my brush in and then make the join. So that's where I am. The other thing that I've done, but I've abandoned, and my wife did tell me at the very beginning, don't bother doing your overcomplicating things. On the original model, all this is glued together, including
the lights inside, so if anything ever happened to the lights, you could never get back to them and repair them. So I thought I'd be really clever and make a magnetic system where it would be a bunch of standoffs, some rings and magnets, so you could work on the electronics and have it fed through there, and then just put it back on and film away as normal. In my down period, I have been fiddling with it, and I have made some pieces. I mean, here's a part of it here. There's going to be all sorts of magnets and standoffs and, bits. It was too complicated. So instead of faffing about with all that sort of stuff, I think I'm just going to get on with all those finer little fiddly details, and hopefully by the end of this session, it'll be complete and ready to paint. So that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, what a vexatious build. That was way more complicated than I had anticipated, mainly because of fiddly things like geometry, keeping things in alignment, having solvents that actually stick, all that kind of guff. Anyway, it's done now, but before I get to the big reveal, I just want to go over a few things. To wit, I have some notes with me to keep me on track because my brain still isn't perfectly on form yet. Now, this took me approximately 45 hours to build over about 20 days. Now, there were periods where I was too ill to do anything, but had I not been unwell or filming the process, which takes way too much time, if I do something that takes 5 minutes normally, when I'm filming it, it's nearly half an hour. So, had I not been doing all that, I reckon that to build this thing from scratch would take you no more than 3 or 4 days. Cost-wise, I paid £123 of materials for this. Now, if you want to make one yourself and you buy everything that you need to build it, that will set you back a staggering £207. So you'd better make damn sure that you like this thing enough to warrant that kind of expenditure. Oh yeah. Do you remember that I wanted it to be filled strippable so that you could get to the electronics after it had been built and painted, and I had this complicated plan involving rings and magnets and standoffs that I abandoned, especially after my wife said, "You're making it way too complicated." It wasn't complicated, but it was
complicated in terms of the amount of time spent on it. Anyway, thanks to a bout of insomnia, at 3 o'clock one morning I woke up and thought, oh, I've got a brilliant idea. Make it simpler. So I did. I got up at 3 o'clock, went downstairs and built it. That's why you don't see any footage of it, but I did build it off camera, and I tell you one thing, when I put that lid on, it's got the most satisfying click that I really like. I don't know why, it's something childish. But anyway, in terms of the finished build, I'm really happy to have made it. I'm glad it's off the list. I like the end result, though as usual, as soon as I'd finished it, I absolutely loathed it. I couldn't bear it. I thought it was rubbish. I thought I was a fraud, as I always do, because I have imposter syndrome. So I went away, made myself a cup of tea, took a break, and then came back to it and thought, actually, this thing has merit. So I do like it. I'm actually happy with it. So that's always a bonus, and I get to keep it. So it's going to be a bit of a portfolio piece. In terms of its accuracy, I always try to remain screen accurate, but as you know, I did deviate very slightly when it came to the panel detailing. The original one had sticky labels, and to me it just looks like sticky labels, which kind of cheapens the effect, I suppose. So I made the decision to replace it with plastic card. Now, this did irk me for ages purely because of the accuracy thing, but I'm now convinced that this was the right call to make. It just looks so much better. Now, I'm sure the original maker, had he had an extra 2 minutes, he could have done the same thing. Lastly, now this is interesting to me. Lastly, you'll see that I did do some airbrushing. Now, ordinarily, this fills me with complete dread. I have absolute nightmares. Every time I've airbrushed, I've had absolute nightmares where I can barely work for 5 minutes without the airbrush. Coughing, spluttering, falling apart, stopping, just messing up completely and ruining the work. So it's always a nightmare, and I break out into a cold sweat when I even think about it. However, I think it was last year, or it might have been, I don't know. Do you remember the TARDIS console room diorama that I built for a client? In that I actually bought a Iwata, and I used it very briefly, just literally to lay down some colour, just flat colour. And even then I thought it was a dream, but this time round I actually did things like weathering and carding and just all sorts of different effects, and I absolutely went for hours and hours and hours with not a single problem. I changed the paint several times. I didn't need to clean it out. Well, I needed to flush it out, flush the colour out, but I had not a single problem. So if you want to get into airbrushing, I would recommend, like I said before, buy yourself a cheap setup. Compressor and an airbrush for about £60, just to give you the general idea. If you like the idea and you like the feel of it, then immediately invest in, and I should get sponsorship deals for this, an Iwata Eclipse. That thing is hassle-free. If you think things are difficult with a cheap brush, it's a complete breeze with an Iwata, so that is fantastic. Anyway, that's enough from me, and I think it's about time that you get to see the final completed miniature. But before you do, I'd just like to thank you all for tagging along and keeping me company during this build process. Now, if you can bring yourself to leave a like and a comment, that would be just absolutely lovely. I always enjoy reading your comments. And if you wish to donate through Super Thanks, feel free, but please, as always, don't feel pressured. All that's left for me to do now is to bid you all good health. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon in the next video. Take care now.